Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and today I'm going to be doing the first video in a new series that I want to start to do. Basically, it's going to be called Top 10 Facts, and yeah, this is going to be the first one, the inaugural. Is that used correctly? Inaugural? Maybe. Or the first episode, I guess, of this new series is going to be for Psycho. So yeah, the Alfred Hitchcock Psycho. So basically how this is going to go is I'm basically going to give you 10 pretty interesting facts of Psycho that you may or may not have known. So yeah, I'm going to try to do this on a weekly basis. It's either going to be about movies or TV shows. So yeah, basically that's it. So so in this case 10 facts, and yeah, and I decided to do Psycho first because I just reviewed the movie, and yeah, I recently reviewed the movie, and I know it's not September anymore, but it's still, I want to do it like a 55th anniversary type of deal, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, the 55th anniversary was on September 8th, and I know we're on October 2nd right now, at least at the time of doing this. But, the movie review for Psycho, that was more of the anniversary thing. This I kind of just want to add it on a bit. So, yeah, and as I said before, I have reviewed the movie, so it's just going to be an annotation over here, somewhere for those who want to check out the review. So, let's get on to the first fact, which is... And the first fact I'm going to be basically telling you guys is the fact that Psycho is the first American film to show a toilet being flushed. So yeah, a flushing toilet. So yeah, pretty odd, pretty weird. And basically the scene basically in this case, it happens within the first 20 minutes, right around there, maybe 25 minutes, 25 minutes. And basically it's when you have Marion Crane, and she's doing the math of how much money she's spent so far out of the $40,000, I believe. Yeah, out of the $40,000 she's stolen, she's doing the math to see how much she has left. And yeah, and basically she eventually rips up the notes and tries to flush them down the toilet. Later on, more towards the end of the movie, within like the last 20 minutes, we see her sister Leigh Crane find the note that Marion Crane tried to flush down. We see part of the note, she pulls it out, and her and Sam, the character of Sam, more or less figure out that she was trying to do something, flush down some kind of note down the toilet, and this one piece was still there, and it kind of gave them a lead as to what possibly may have happened to her. So yeah, pretty interesting fact. Now on to the ninth interesting fact, which would have to be... Okay, so the ninth most interesting fact, in my opinion, for Psycho is the fact that Ted Knight appeared in an uncredited role as a police officer towards the end of the film. So for those who don't know who Ted Knight is, he's most famous for being on that '70s show with Mila Kunis, I believe she's in it, and Ashton Kutcher, I believe that they're in it too. I don't watch that '70s show, to be honest. I've watched a few episodes of it, but haven't really watched any of it. But it's just kind of interesting that that's more or less where he got his start. Yeah, that was one of his first early roles. And, it's kind of interesting because he's more best known for for that '70s show. And the fact that he kind of started off in an Alfred Hitchcock film is kind of interesting. Police officer, more again towards the end of the film, after they've arrested Norman Bates. So yeah, pretty interesting. Now on to the eighth most interesting fact, and that would have to be... Now for the eighth most interesting fact for Psycho, in this case I'm basically going to be discussing who were up for the lead of Marion Crane, what other actresses were up for the role of Marion Crane considered. Now, as we all know, Janet Leigh was cast as Marion Crane and then killed off in the shower scene within like halfway through the movie, and basically shocked all of the movie audience. Though, who else could have been killed off in that shower scene? Now, some of the other actresses who were considered are were Eva Marie Saint, Lee Remick, Angie Dickens, Piper Laurie, Martha Heyer, Hope Lang, Shirley Jones, and Luna Turner. I can't pronounce her name. So yeah, pretty interesting. I've heard of Lee Remick and Angie Dickinson, and Martha Heyer. I've heard of those three, and Hope Lang as well. Yeah, so I think that would have been interesting to see them as to how they could have acted a part. Ava Marie Saint, haven't heard of. Her Lena Turner, haven't heard of. Shirley Jones, she sounds familiar, but I don't remember her. But yeah, pretty interesting to see that. I think the most interesting would have been Leigh Remick. In my opinion, I mean, she's pretty good in my opinion from what I've seen. I don't remember exactly what she's in, but I know I've seen her in some stuff. Um, Shit, I'm drawing a blank as to what I've seen her in, but like I have the picture in my head. I have a scene in my head where she's in it, but I can't really think of the movie it comes from. But I think that would those some of those options would have been interesting. And yeah, but as we all know, Janet Leigh got the Covenant role of Marion Crane, and she couldn't have done a more fantastic job. But just interesting to know and learn about some of the other actresses who could have fulfilled that role. Now onto the number 7th spot for most interesting fact for Psycho, and in my opinion, that would have to be. And for the 7th most interesting fact about Psycho, would have to be that Psycho was officially selected for preservation by the Library of Congress all the way back in 1992. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting in my opinion. I mean, it is an iconic film. So, yeah, I mean, from 1960 to 1992, that's about 32 years. So I think it got its time. It is one of those films that should be preserved. Now, exactly how the Library of Congress selects these films, I'm not really sure how they select these type of things like films, and stuff like that to preserve. I don't really know exactly what the criteria is, but regardless of it, I think they did a great decision to do that. Library of Congress, yeah, preservation cycle. One of the best films ever made. Definitely one of the best horror films ever. One of my favorite horror film of all time, and definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah, great choice, Library of Congress. Great choice. Now on to the sixth most interesting fact about Psycho, and that would have to be. Okay, so for the 6th most interesting fact about Psycho is basically the inspiration for Norman Bates. Now, Psycho as a whole is inspired by a book. I forget exactly what book. I know I mentioned it in my review for Psycho, but I forget exactly what book it was. Now, that book did have an inspiration for the character, and that is Ed Gaines. Ed Gaines, he's basically known as a serial killer, um, and he inspired Norman Bates in more than one way, or at least the character. Aside from being a serial killer, he was devout to his mom, or he was really obsessed with his mom. And similarly to Norman Bates, he had this weird obsession with his mom. So yeah, and the mom died in 1945, and Gain never left home or dated a woman, similar to how Norman Bates never left home, or aside from the hotel and his home, he never really went out with anyone. Now, he did try to socialize with people, but, he's kind of a creep about it, the whole eyeball scene, where he's looking through the window or whatever, the peeping hole, and, yeah, and basically he did kill a few people, yeah, at least two women. He did kill at least two women in 57, but he was eventually he was announced guilty on pleas of insanity. I believe that's how it went, something like that. And furthermore, this man Ed Gaines, not only did he inspire Norman Bates in Psycho, but he also inspired James Gumb in Silence of the Lamb and Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So yeah, pretty interesting how a real life serial killer can not only be the inspiration to one of the greatest movie villains of all time, but like at least three of the greatest movie villains and horror movie villains of all time. So yeah, now on to the 5th most interesting fact about Psycho, which would have to be. Now, this fact may surprise people, but for the 5th most interesting fact, did you guys know that Psycho is actually a franchise? So yeah, now this has 4 movies, a remake, and 2 different TV series. So yeah, now the most obvious one would have to be Bates Motel, which is on season 4 already as of now, if I'm not mistaken, season 4 or 5. But this Psycho is actually a franchise. It had a remake all the way back in 1990 with Vince Vaughn, and let's just say not many people really liked it at all, like at all. I think it's got at least like 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, if I remember correctly. So yeah, and the reason nobody likes it is because it was shot almost by verbatim. So yeah, and if you see some of the clips of it on YouTube, it's pretty bad. It's pretty, yeah. Vince Vaughn, not really a good Norman Bates. and it has four sequels. Yeah, and all four sequels, um, Anthony Perkins was somehow associated with them. But if he's not acting in it, he's producing it. So yeah, I mean, because I believe the last one, the Psycho 4, I believe that's the one where he's not acting in it. I believe he's producing it. I know he produced all the other four Psycho movies, Psychos 2, 3, and 4. Um, and I believe he also supported the remake up until it actually got released. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And there's also another TV series all the way back in the 70s and 80s, more of a radio TV series, if you know what I mean, like a radio, like a radio talk show, I guess, if you know what I mean, a psycho, one of those radio shows. If you know, I know it sounds kind of weird, but if you guys know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. Where the show is kind of on the radio and you kind of hear it. I believe that's how they kind of explained it in some of those situations, and eventually it became a TV show. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So yeah, and to go even a bit further with this fact, which I will explain a bit more in another fact. But basically, if not for the score in this movie, let's just say that this could have the whole Psycho thing could have landed in the Alfred Hitchcock show as a 30-minute special. So yeah, more interesting. So yeah, and I'll explain that in another fact. So yeah, now onto the fourth most interesting fact. This one's gonna kind of get criminal, if you know what I mean. The fourth most interesting fact would have to be. Now, the fourth most interesting fact, as I said, will be criminal, and that is the fact that Janet Leigh received so many threatening letters, death threats, rape threats, whatever threats, so many threatening letters about what people would do to Marion Crane, that I got to a point that she sent over one of the letters to the FBI. Eventually, the person who sent that letter was caught by the FBI and told Janet Leigh that if anything similar to this were to ever happen again, to contact the FBI. And sure enough, after the news broke out that something happened like this and that the FBI had to get involved, it almost immediately stopped overnight. So yeah, pretty interesting. I searched as to who possibly the sender was that got arrested by the FBI. I couldn't really find anything, but yeah, let's just say she hasn't had to deal with that anymore. So yeah, on to the third most interesting fact, which would be. So yeah, the third most interesting fact about Psycho is the fact that Alfred Hitchcock considered the score of the film to be 33% of the reason as to why the film was so successful. That he doubled Bernard Herrmann's allowance. He doubled his allowance to $34,501. So for those who don't know who Bernard Herrmann is, he was the composer. He was the one who did the score. So yeah. And basically, to elaborate on what I said all the way back in fact 5, or interesting fact 5, 5, about Psycho being a franchise, he's part of the reason as to why Alfred Hitchcock decided not to cut all of Psycho into a 30-minute special for the Alfred Hitchcock show. So, yeah. Yeah, and basically, as another quick fact about it, which I'm also going to explain in the next fact, is the fact that, wow, too many facts in one sentence. Well, whatever. Basically, the fact, basically, Bernard Herrmann's score, originally the shower scene was supposed to be silent, but by the time that Bernard Herrmann came along, he already did the score for the shower scene, and Alfred Hitchcock liked it so much that he kept it in there. So yeah, now on to the second most interesting fact about Psycho, which is actually about the shower scene, and that would have to be. Okay, so this fact is about the shower scene, and basically, the shower scene is a 45-second long scene in total. However, it took almost a week to make, and in total it has 70 different cuts in between it. So yeah, one of the most iconic scenes, one of the most shortest and iconic scenes in movie history, took almost a week long to do, and it has 70 cuts to do it. And as I said before, originally the scene was supposed to be silent, but by the time that Bernard Herrmann came along, he already had composed music for the scene, and Alfred Hitchcock again liked it so much that he kept it in there. So yeah, that's pretty interesting, pretty cool. Yeah, one of the most iconic scenes took that long with that many takes or cuts in it. Pretty interesting, pretty cool. And yeah, now onto the number one most interesting fact about Psycho. And this one's interesting just from a marketing standpoint. Um, yeah, and let's just get to it. And that would have to be, so yeah, the number one most interesting fact about Psycho, which is from a marketing standpoint, was the fact that Alfred Hitchcock required that every single cinema ensure that everyone who saw Psycho, yeah, would ensure that everybody sees Psycho from the start, even to the point that he would have a life-size cutouts. He made or produced life-size cutouts of him pointing to his watch and telling the audience that they must watch the movie from the start or else. Ellipse. Yeah, dot dot dot. And yeah, and it just goes to show how much Alfred Hitchcock cherished the idea of cinema and going to the cinema. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's interesting. You know that there are movies where they do that, where they don't let you leave or whatever. Where if you leave, you can't enter, or you can't enter it once the movie has started. But the fact that he made life-size cutouts out of him pointing to his watch, and they even got to the point where the news or the media or whatever at the time started showing videos of the line going for those who wanted to see Psycho on the news. Like there's images and there's footage of people waiting to see Psycho who want to see it, and it's just pretty interesting to see how many people actually want to see it and how effective this gimmick actually was. Because I'm sure, I mean, Alfred Hitchcock, a really recognizable name by this point, in 1960, but still, I mean, pretty interesting gimmick to make even at this day and age to have, someone do that. And another interesting gimmick that he did, also from a marketing standpoint, is the fact that the trailer for Psycho is 6 minutes long, and or there's two trailers. I believe it's one or two trailers. I'm not really sure. But one of the trailers is 6 minutes long. Yeah, I got it correct. One of the trailers is 6 minutes long, and again, that's unheard of in any day and age of movies. The fact that there's a 6 minute long trailer. So there's that, and then there's another, I guess, trailer or sneak peek, I guess you could say, of him giving a tour of the whole Norman Bates house and the Bates Hotel. And towards the end of the video, or towards the end of the sneak peek, he pulls back the curtains, and we hear the Marion Crane's scream from when she was stabbed in the movie, in the shower scene. Again, this was for marketing reasons right before the movie came out. So yeah, Alfred Hitchcock really did cherish the movies and just the movie experience. Getting people interested in it with both the trailers and the life-size cutouts. So yeah, that's basically it for all these top 10 facts. For the first top 10 facts, just to go over them again. Number 10, Psycho is the first American movie to show a flushing toilet. Number 9 is Ted Knight's one of Ted Knight's first early appearance in film and TV as an uncredited police officer in this movie. Number 8 is the fact that Eva Marie Saint, Leigh Remick, Angie Dickens, Piper Laurie, Martha Hayes, Hope Lang, Shirley Jones, and Luna Turner are all considered for the role of Marion Crane. Number 7 is the fact that Psycho was selected for preservation by Congress in 1992. 6 is that Ed Gaines was the inspiration for Norman Bates. Number 5 is the fact that Psycho is a franchise with 4 sequels, a remake, and 2 TV shows. Number 4 is the fact that Janet Leigh got so many threatening letters as to what people would do to Marion Crane that the FBI had to get involved. Number 3 is the fact that Alfred Hitchcock considers the success of the movie to be 33% mostly due to the score made by Bernard Herrmann. Number 2 is the fact that the shower scene is 45 seconds long, and it took 1 week to make, and it has over 70 cuts in it. And number 1 is the fact that Alfred Hitchcock made life-size cutouts of himself pointing to his watch, and basically required every single cinema to make every single moviegoer watch the movie from the start. So yeah, that's basically it for the first top 10. What were your thoughts on it? Again, I'm going to try to do this on a weekly basis. Next week, I'm going to try to do Metropolis, the 1927 movie Metropolis. And if you guys have any suggestions for any TV shows or movies or anything else you guys want to see in the top 10s, in this new top 10 series, comment it all that down below. Let me know. Do you guys know any other interesting facts about Psycho? Also, comment all that down below. Let me know. Like the video, share on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, or whatever you guys prefer. And that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.